And now we have AI coming onto the scene and AI search. I would argue that whenever you have a change like this in technology, not to mention combined with a change in consumer behavior, then that is a huge disruption to the market, but also it's a huge opportunity. If you're nimble on your feet and you're able to grab that opportunity.
You're listening to Titans of the Trades. I'm your host, Ryan England, author of Hire Better People Faster and creator of the CoreFit Hiring System, a proven process to help growing companies attract and retain only the best. I'm on a mission to revolutionize the perception of the trades and elevate it to new heights. After growing up in a blue-collar family, my passion for making the trades cool again runs deep. If you're a titan in the industry and want to be on my show, stick around until the end and I'll reveal how you can be my next guest. Welcome back. I'm your host, Ryan England, and today I sit down with the co-founder and chief revenue officer of Eden, Seattle-based startup that's doing some crazy stuff in creating price transparency for the HVAC industry. And as much as you might think we're going to be talking about the HVAC industry today, I want to pause for a second and let you know that this is an episode you are not going to want to miss. We talk about the modern consumer behavior and how people are thinking, what AI search is doing for people right now. So if you are a fan of AI or you're thinking, hey, how is search going to be impacted by this? Josh has some great insight to that. He's been instrumental in developing their instant quote tool. A web-based application allows HVAC contractors to provide homeowners with immediate, accurate estimates. So the guy's a whiz, too, at making technology work for not only you, but for your customer. So I want you to take some notes. I want to introduce Josh Koplin, co-founder and CRO of Eden. Josh, welcome to the show.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So tell our listeners a little bit about what Eden does and maybe even why you decided to develop this solution for homeowners.
Yeah, absolutely. So Eden, we are a team based out of the greater Seattle area, so the nice rainy Pacific Northwest. Seasonal depression definitely is a thing. I can talk to that. But really what we do is it's a online quoting and pricing tool for the residential HVAC space. So why are we doing this, right? So things have changed with consumers over the past 5 years, pre-COVID, post-COVID. As consumers, we're all getting used to things like Amazon, Tesla, CarMax, stuff like that, and looking for that sort of experience in really all the other facets of our lives. So we really thought that there's an opportunity here for a win-win between consumers as well as contractors. And so that's why we ended up developing the Eden Instant Quote.
Okay, cool. And you just showed it to me, and
Yes.
It's a cool tool, and it empowers the homeowner, which I think is something that's so important because we live in this world where if I want to know what something costs or if it's available, there's a Google search or an Amazon search, right? Like right there in my hand. And so you're really empowering the homeowner with that.
Absolutely. So we see it really as both empowering the homeowner, giving them what they want, but also from our perspective, it's producing something that's a much better lead, also creating more trust between contractors and homeowners online. And so we really see it as something that can provide really kind of a win-win between homeowners and contractors in order to, from our perspective for the product, just to get people a much more sales qualified hot lead.
Yeah. Does it work with service work as well, or is it only for installs?
So it is specific for installations. Service work, there's a lot of stuff that can go on. Also, we want to make sure that we are targeting that higher ticket price, higher margin part of the business, which is really what I think a lot of residential contractors are going after.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, so from my perspective, we work with them to hire technicians and hire qualified technicians. And I always get this ask is, can we hire a really skilled technician who can also sell really well? And I'm like, that's like left brain, right brain stuff.
Exactly. I mean, it's kind of the holy grail, right?
Yeah.
And they do exist, those those rare magical creatures. They are out there.
They are
the selling tech.
yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right. One of the things is with a lot of technicians, they might be really fantastic at doing installs, doing repairs. Maybe not so much on the selling side. That's why you have the salesperson on the team as well. If someone can do both, love it. That is absolutely fantastic. But it's also a tool that, for instance, a technician could use as well to provide quotes on site, just make it a really seamless and also kind of a low pressure process for the homeowner too.
One of the things, so I used to, before I started doing the work we do around recruiting and helping them hire technicians, I used to run marketing for a lot of residential contractors. And I remember talking to them, like one of the biggest challenges that the homeowner has is that they can't see it. Like it's behind a wall, it's in an attic, it's in a crawl space. They don't understand it. There's physics at play, like mechanical engineering, all that other stuff. And then they've got usually a technician that's good at doing it. They can't explain it well.
Yep.
So it's like this whole, one of the hardest things to sell to a homeowner or to a consumer. And I think what you're doing with Eden is you're bringing transparency to that process.
Absolutely.
And removing some of those barriers. Can you talk a little bit about that pricing transparency and where you're seeing that really bring value to the contractor, but also the consumer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for this, we want to step a little bit back from just talking about the home services space and just think about what's happened with consumer behavior. So if we think back, say, the past 5 years, the past 10 years, let's just say pre-COVID and post-COVID, right? So we've seen a huge change in how we live our lives as consumers, how we interact with each other, how we talk with businesses, how we communicate, how we shop, and how we buy. So all that stuff has really, really just fundamentally changed. And we're seeing that also kind of trickle into the home services space as well. So just, I'm not going to bombard you with too many stats or anything like that, but there are statistics out there that say that prospects are about 80% through their decision-making process before they contact a company. And I want to let that sink in a little bit. 80% through the decision-making process before they even talk to a salesperson. That's huge.
Wow.
Right? I mean, and it actually gets even better or worse depending on your perspective, but I think we want to be just value neutral and just tell it how it is, right? So if you're talking about, say, 5-6 years ago, so what, we're in 2025 now, so 2019, call it, before the COVID times, this figure was actually around 70%. So we've, in the span of about 5 years, we've seen a change. Now go back to the 2000s, the early 2000s, if we still remember that time, before the internet. What do you think this figure was? 20%, 30%?
I was going to say like 30. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Things have just fundamentally changed over the past 20 years, and especially in this sort of post-COVID world that we've entered into. And so since the way that consumers shop has changed so much, and let's face it, we're talking about growing our businesses and all this stuff. At the end of the day, the consumer is the one that is paying the bills because they're the ones that are buying stuff. They're the ones that are giving business to us. And so we need to provide the consumer what they want, how they want it, in order to win their business and their trust, in order to continue growing as businesses. And that's really sort of where we are coming from as a company.
Yeah. No, it got me thinking, because I'm a consumer and a homeowner, and my process isn't that far off from what you just described. I think I shared with you, I knew I had to put a different height toilet in for guests that were coming, and I'd already made up my mind that this was happening. I already made up my mind on the toilet that I wanted to put in. I already made up my mind on almost everything. All I needed to do is find a contractor that would do it.
Yep, absolutely.
And I could not find a contractor that would give me a price quote over the phone, even a range, without coming out.
For sure.
And I was like, yeah, I understand that when you send that guy out, guess what? You got to pay for that trip.
Yep.
So you're going to bake that in. Help me understand what this is going to cost. And had they given me price transparency, I would have not learned how to install a toilet that weekend. Right?
It's a good life skill to have, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think that happens so much. I've heard contractors complain about this too. Well, well, Home Depot says it costs this to get it installed, or Angie's List says it costs this, or there's a Reddit thread where all these people are telling you what they paid, right? And the consumer's like, I'm empowered now.
Yeah.
I have this information. I don't have to be the victim anymore. I don't have to be the one that gets raked over the coals, which is kind of that old school mindset. And they feel like they have the information.
They do. And, I think the last thing that we want, both from a consumer perspective, but especially for contractors, is to have Angie dictating our prices. Like, that is like dystopia. That is our worst nightmare. Like, no one wants that.
Yeah.
Right. And so, in a sense, it's, if you don't want Angie to be dictating your prices or just giving consumers the wrong idea or, anything, then how do you actually combat that? Well, it's actually to put yourself out there and say, no, Angie, we're not going with what you're saying because you have no idea what you're talking about. Here's what it is and here's why. Right. Yep. You got to be out there. You got to be out front of it in order to make that case. Absolutely.
Well, and I think in the contractor world, not all companies are created equal, right? I mean, if you've got Chuck in a truck or Pete in a pickup, his pricing is going to be way less, but you're also not going to have the warranty. You're not going to have the support. You may not have the skills to impact your personal situation. But I think we forget that. We get so caught up in these price wars. We get so caught up in Angie said this, Home Depot said this, I'm saying this, that I've heard this said before. Never base your pricing on what someone else is willing to price, because there's always someone willing to go bankrupt faster than you.
Oh, absolutely. No,
and so anytime we fall in that trap, we're in trouble.
100%. I mean, there's a reason why your prices are higher than your competition, and it has to do with your reputation. How trained your techs are. Are they NATE certified? What's your warranty? Have you been around for 50 years serving the community? It's all of these things. And, at the end of the day, yes, as consumers, we are price motivated. Yes, that is a thing. But at the same time, one of the interesting things is that it's actually the more kind of premium priced companies that have been using Eden, that have actually been putting themselves out there with their pricing, have been seeing fantastic results and actually beating out Chuck in a truck. And so what that says to me is that, yes, price and transparency is important, but as consumers, we are also looking at all of this holistically. What are their reviews? What's their reputation? How they've been serving the community. Are they a locally owned company? Tell us your company's story, and then we're going to take that together with the prices and then ultimately make a decision.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. And I like being empowered. And I think with the access to information, the internet, I'm going to let everybody know I'm going to ask you about AI search because that's coming up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
well, it's already here.
There's so much information at our fingertips as consumers. I think the more transparent we are, the easier it is for them to trust.
Yep.
Because when you won't give me a price quote over the phone or even an estimate, what are you going to do when you get here? You're going to look and go, oh, well, we're going to have to do this, 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 and this. And I didn't need any of that stuff. Like, that's what goes through my head.
100%. And actually, I can talk to that a little bit from personal experience, too, because as we were talking about before the show, the way that we started Eden is so, I was coming in from a completely different industry. So I actually ended up selling HVAC systems for a year. So crawled through attics and measured line sets and had those kitchen table conversations. And what I quickly found out was that I could be in the home talking about, oh, yeah, we're going to put, a designer style mini split head there. And, that's going to cover 2 rooms. And, you're going to route the line sets this way. And then you're going to have zone control, over this part of the house and that part of the house and all that stuff. And all the great stuff that I was talking about, it was going in one ear and out the other because they were like, yes, how much is this going to cost me?
That's funny. I've actually said that before. I'm like, can you just tell me how much it's going to cost? Because then I can focus on what you're about to say.
Oh my God.
Otherwise, I'm just sitting here going, that's adding up.
My sales pitch was literally going in the right ear and out the left. It was like, oh my God. Anyway.
And I think that happens, though, to a lot of contractors. It's one of the reasons they struggle so much. And, we were talking before the show. I get a lot of people saying, hey, can you help me find a really skilled technician, like someone that can do all of it? and they need to be able to sell.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, that's a really tough one. And so if we can equip, which is what I look at what Eden's doing, if we can equip that salesman or that technician with the information, the tools, the homeowner already has the information, they're not sitting there playing that sales game in their living room.
Yep, exactly. Or it could even be, hey, I'm going to go out back. I'm going to check out what's going on with the machine. It's about 12 years old. If you're thinking about replacing, hey, just go to our website, check it out. I'll be back in about 30 minutes once I fixed your machine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's great. Well, hey, you just spoke at an event and you talked about AI search and the impact that that's going to have on the consumer market, the impact it's going to have on contractors. Share a little bit about that with our listeners.
Absolutely. So, Ryan, you mentioned that AI search is coming. I would do one slight correction, which is that it is already here. So Gartner actually expects that AI search is going to shave about 26%, between 26 and 30% off of sort of traditional search by 2026. And 2026 is next year.
Wow. Did you hear that, Google?
And to be fair, Google is already doing stuff with AI overviews, right? Like if you type something into Google, you get something at the very top saying, just giving you a summary. Incidentally, that is already affecting click-through rates. So if there are AI overviews shown, people are not clicking through to your website anymore because they're getting the information right then and there. You see the same trend in organic and also paid search as well. So you're already seeing changes happen within Google's ecosystem. But I think the more sort of interesting part is what happens when you get disruptors coming into the space, right? Like if we think about, well, let's actually take a step back. Let's think back on the past 30 years. You had first, before the internet, the yellow pages, you could probably, hit someone over the head and probably kill somebody with those things. They were huge. But those were, you had the yellow pages, print ads, radio and television. Yes, that is still a thing. Then you have this thing come on called the internet. In the 2000s, having a website that was just completely revolutionary. Then basically Google gobbled up that market and they still have this huge hegemony over just search and ads and everything. And that does continue to be a thing. But then you had another change in the later 2000s, mobile, social. We started using phones all the time. And the way that we interact with the internet, that just fundamentally changed. And then now we have AI coming onto the scene and AI search, which again, I would make the argument, it is another sea change that is literally happening right before our eyes. And I would also argue that whenever you have a change like this in technology, not to mention combined with a change in consumer behavior, then that is a huge disruption to the market, but also it's a huge opportunity. If you're nimble on your feet and you're able to grab that opportunity, it presents huge opportunities.
Wow. I mean, so much to think about. It's interesting. You were talking about Google search, and I don't always get the little AI thing, but when I do, I read it and they get that little link thing and I click on it because I'm like, oh, I want to see the source because I've learned you can't always trust AI, but it's getting better. But then I'm presented with a whole bunch of websites, not the one that they pulled from, the aggregate of the websites. And I'm like, now I have to review more. No, I'll just trust what it says. I mean, it's almost like they did it on purpose. But I found that when I want to understand things, or for me personally, when I'm doing some research, I find that going to like Perplexity or some of these other AI tools.
I was just about to bring up Perplexity. It's actually one of my favorites for fact finding and doing AI search online.
Yes, and everything. My doctor's like, I want to put you on this new medication. Instead of me going through a whole bunch of websites that I don't understand, I can ask Perplexity, tell me about this. And it gives it to me in layman's terms, which I love. It helps me understand it. And I can ask questions almost like I would my doctor or my pharmacist.
Yes.
Which I'm sure that the pharmacists are like, don't trust the bots. But you know what? It's so hard to get information from a live human being anymore. We're almost relegated to online search to get the information we need.
It kind of is in a sense. And I think, from an HVAC business or a home services business perspective, is that whereas we were, as consumers, we were dependent very much on Google. You're now seeing people shift off of Google. Obviously, Google is going to continue to be a force. If you're doing any sort of search or ads or whatever, you're still going to want to be doing all that traditional Google stuff for your SEO with, the keywords and the backlinks and, everything that you've been doing, making sure that you're responding to reviews and all that stuff. But AI search actually brings up very much a paradigm shift for what actually gets shown to searchers. And not to mention that you're having consumers kind of shift off of traditional search. It's like when, with Facebook, right? A younger generation of people, they said, Facebook, it's for old people and dead people. I moved on to, Snapchat or TikTok or, whatever
it is today,
whatever it is. You're seeing that same thing in Google search now. And I think what would actually be interesting is, let me share a little bit about what I talked about at Epic around AI search, and specifically just a very simple experiment that I ran. It was literally asking the same question to ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google, and just comparing what actually comes up. So the search that I did was, I asked for highly rated heating contractor near Kirkland, Washington. Why Kirkland, Washington? It's because I'm originally from there. The home of Costco. So that's where people have probably heard the name Kirkland. I was part of a 24-pack that my parents picked up there. The last surviving one. No. But what you actually find is that what comes up when you do that same search in Google, Perplexity, and ChatGPT, it's completely different. So if you do that Google search, and you can do it for really anything, any sort of local services search, you end up getting, first of all, a bunch of sponsored stuff in Google. Scroll down a little bit more, you get those local services, you do get some local companies. Then you end up going through Yelp, Angie, the highly rated, so-called SEO searches. So you get some of those. And then you finally end up getting some local companies that are doing a very good job on their SEO, so they actually show up on page 1 of Google. And then you get more sponsored stuff. And when you do that same search in Perplexity, when you do that same search in ChatGPT, you end up getting completely different companies showing up on that list. You do get some of the same ones, maybe one or two, but what actually shows up, it's just completely different. And what's fascinating about this is that whereas in Google, you get, Angie, Yelp, Home Advisor coming up on the searches, Perplexity and Google are actually going into those platforms. So they are citing those sources in order to actually provide you with those lists of highly rated heating contractors in Kirkland, Washington. And on top of that, in ChatGPT's case, it was literally going down a Reddit rabbit hole, looking up what people were writing about on Reddit, and then presenting that to you as, hey, people in your area have said very positive things about this particular company. And so that company was on that list, like number 3 from the top.
Wow.
It is a completely different paradigm.
Wow. I'm sitting here thinking about it, and we don't have time to get into the why behind this or what you suspect. But as I'm listening to that, I'm thinking Google wants to protect its advertising revenue.
Yes.
ChatGPT and Perplexity are like, that's not where my revenue comes from. My revenue comes from, people wanting to pay for pro subscriptions and everything else, which means I need to have the most accurate information or the most relevant information. It's not about protecting that advertising. All right. So as we wrap up, I have one last question, because I have so many questions about the AI stuff. But for contractors right now that are going, yeah, Josh, thank you. You scared me too, right? The world is changing in front of me, and I feel like I have no control. But I know there are contractors out there saying, yep, the AI wave is here. I better figure out how to write it. Where do we look for over the next maybe 2 to 3 years? Like, what are some things that contractors should be prepared for based on what you're seeing? And I mean, even the work you're doing over at Eden, because I do think you're at the forefront of something.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that, so high level, a lot of it has to do with making sure that you are meeting consumers where they are and meeting their expectations. Like we talked about, the consumers, the homeowners, they're the ones that at the end of the day are paying our bills. And so the more that you can meet their needs and really provide them what they're looking for online, the better position you're going to be in order to have that at bat at the kitchen table. The best way that I can put that is to say all the stuff that you've been talking about at the kitchen table, answering their questions, making the case for why they should choose your company, all that stuff, start putting that online, start putting that on your website. It can be not only in the form of text, it can be videos, it can be whatever media is easily accessible to homeowners. Put that stuff out there and really let consumers make those decisions that, yes, they do want to have that conversation with you at the kitchen table. I think that at really kind of a high level is what I would recommend. Since we have maybe a couple more minutes, just a few recommendations on the AI search front. One is I would say that we've been super focused on Google for the past 20 years with AI search, and we should be clear, Perplexity, ChatGPT, they're not friends with Google. And so you want to make sure that you are listed on the databases that these other engines trust too. Again, not saying that you should just throw away everything that you've been doing with Google. Still, it's going to be super important. But if you are not having profiles and stuff like that on Yelp, on, I hate to say it, I'm sorry, Angie. Also, things like if somebody is writing good stuff about you on Reddit, you want to be essentially all over the place that these AI search engines are referencing, or making sure that you're listed on AI reference platforms. So just one example, there was one where AI was looking at, are you listed on the local chamber of commerce? What are trusted sources that consumers trust, and making sure that you are listed there. If you continue doing that, then AI will be referencing those. You're going to be cutting that higher on AI search. And lastly, reviews, that just is here to stay, regardless of whether it's cool or not. So great reviews and responding still continues to be super important in the AI age too.
Oh my gosh. All right. So the last 3 minutes, like you just dropped all the bombs. That was amazing. All right. People are like, all right, where's the good stuff? Like that was all of it right there.
It was literally the last 2 minutes, right?
Yeah. We're not going to tell people that. They got to watch watch or listen to the beginning.
You got to put a teaser up there so that, people actually continue watching through all the way to the end.
Yeah, no, it was great though. And I really like the journey you took us through, the modern consumer behavior, AI search, transparency in the contracting space, what homeowners are really looking for. Like, I think all of it was really great information. So thank you so much for all of that. How do people learn more about you and learn more about your product? Or heck, I mean, you're just a wealth of knowledge about all this stuff. So how do they connect with you personally as well?
Absolutely. So our company is called Eden, website www.e-denhomes, so e-denhomes.com. And my name is Josh. My email, so josh.koplin, josh.koplin at edenhomes, e-denhomes.com. So that's my personal email and our company as well. So if anybody's interested in learning a little bit more or just having a conversation, always here, always available.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Ryan England here. Thank you so much for listening to Titans of the Trades. If you're a titan in the construction, manufacturing, or skilled trades industry and would like to be a guest on my show, please visit podcast.corematters.com. If you found value in this interview, would you share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot on your phone and share it with a friend or post it on social. And if you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Titans of the Trades. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, click the subscribe button. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and get me one step closer to solving the labor crisis facing the industry. Want to know more about how we're doing that? Go to our website or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening.